What happens when a man known for silence walks into a room built on noise? What happens when calm meets provocation, when restraint is tested under studio lights, when the audience expects a performance, and instead they get something colder, sharper, unforgettable? Before we go any further, if you love explosive celebrity moments, raw confrontations, and cinematic breakdowns of interviews that went off the rails, subscribe to Stage View right now. Hit that like button, drop a comment, let us know you're here, because this story, this one doesn't blink. The studio of The View hums with its usual energy long before the cameras roll. Warm lights, glossy floors, producers whispering into headsets, the faint rustle of cue cards. The audience settles in, already smiling, already primed. They think they know what kind of show this will be. They always do. Then Cillian Murphy walks out. Not rushed, not smiling, not performing. He moves with the quiet certainty of someone who doesn't need the room to approve of him. Slim frame, dark suit, eyes steady, distant, like they're looking past the set and into something older, heavier. Applause breaks out, strong, excited, but he doesn't wave. He nods once. That's all. Sunny Hostin is already watching him closely. She sits upright at the table, posture precise, expression polite but sharpened. Sunny is a veteran of this space. She knows how to guide conversations. She knows how to press. She knows when to smile and when not to. Today, something in her gaze suggests she didn't come just to promote a film. The introductions roll smoothly. Laughter here. A quick joke there. Whoopi leans back, relaxed. Joy nods along. The audience claps on cue. Everything feels normal. Too normal. Cillian speaks when spoken to. His voice is soft, controlled, Irish lilt smoothing the edges of every word. He answers questions about his latest role with thoughtful pauses, not filling silence, not chasing approval. The audience leans in. They always do. Silence makes people nervous. Silence makes people listen. Sunny waits. When her turn comes, she smiles, warm, professional. But there's a subtle shift in the air. The kind you feel before a storm you didn't see on the forecast. So, Cillian, she begins, fingers lightly touching her notes. Your performances are often described as emotionally distant. Cold, even. Do you feel a responsibility as a public figure to be more open, more expressive, especially in today's climate? The question lands heavier than it sounds. The audience murmurs softly. Cillian doesn't answer right away. He tilts his head slightly, considering. Not offended. Not defensive. Just measuring. I don't see my work as a responsibility to express what people expect, he says calmly. I see it as a responsibility to tell the truth of a character. Sunny nods, but she doesn't let it go. But don't you think, she presses, that emotional accessibility matters? That staying quiet, reserved, can come across as disengaged, especially when so many artists are using their platforms to speak out. There it is. The tension creeps in, subtle but unmistakable. The camera cuts to the audience, faces alert now. Whoopi shifts slightly in her chair. Joy glances sideways. Even the producers sense it. Cillian exhales slowly through his nose. Still calm. Still steady. I think, he says, choosing each word carefully, that there's a difference between silence and disengagement. I speak through my work. I listen more than I talk. That's not avoidance. That's intention. Sunny's smile tightens. But silence, she counters, can be interpreted as privilege, as choosing comfort over responsibility. The word privilege hangs in the air like smoke. A ripple moves through the crowd, some nodding, some stiffening. This is no longer a casual interview. This is a line being drawn. Cillian looks directly at Sunny now. Not confrontational. Not aggressive. Just focused. His eyes don't flicker to the audience. He doesn't glance at the cameras. Interpretation, he says evenly, belongs to the viewer. Not the actor. The stillness that follows is startling. No laughter. No applause. Just a suspended moment where everyone seems to realize this isn't going the way it usually does. Sunny leans forward slightly. So you don't believe artists have a duty beyond their craft? Cillian pauses longer this time. The silence stretches. You can almost hear someone in the control room whisper, answer it. Say something safe. Instead, he says, I believe duty without authenticity is performance. And I don't perform my beliefs for approval. A few gasps. A smattering of applause quickly hushed by uncertainty. Whoopi clears her throat, ready to intervene, but Sunny isn't finished. Isn't that easy to say? She asks, voice firmer now, When your career has afforded you the luxury of being detached? The word detached cuts deeper. For the first time, something shifts in Cillian's expression. Not anger. Not hurt. Something colder. More resolved. Detached from what? He asks quietly. Sunny hesitates, just a fraction, but presses on. From the consequences. From the lived realities many people don't get to step away from when the cameras turn off. The studio feels smaller now. Hotter. The audience senses it. This isn't debate anymore. This is pressure. Cillian nods once slowly. I don't step away, he says. I step inward. And that's where I do my work. Loudness isn't the same as courage. And silence isn't the same as indifference. That lands. Hard. A wave of applause breaks out, uncontrolled, spontaneous. Producers scramble. The clapping grows louder, then fractures, some cheering, some uncertain, some sitting frozen. Sunny's jaw tightens, but she keeps her composure. She smiles again, but this time it doesn't reach her eyes. Well, she says lightly, that's certainly one way to look at it. Cillian offers a faint, almost imperceptible smile. It's the only honest way I know. The camera cuts wide. The table. The audience. The hosts exchanging quick glances. This moment, this quiet clash, has shifted the temperature of the room. And no one knows yet, this is only the beginning. The applause fades unevenly, like rain hitting different surfaces at different times. Some claps die quickly. Others linger, almost defiant. The audience doesn't quite know what they just witnessed, only that something has shifted beneath the polished surface of daytime television. Cillian Murphy sits back in his chair, hands loosely folded, posture relaxed but alert. He hasn't raised his voice. He hasn't leaned forward. He hasn't broken a sweat. And somehow, that restraint feels louder than any outburst ever could. Sunny Hostin glances down at her notes, then back up at him. The smile returns, practiced, television perfect. But there's a flicker behind her eyes now, something sharper, something more personal. She's not used to guests refusing the rhythm of the show. She's not used to silence refusing to bend. Well, she says, letting out a short laugh meant to reset the tone. Let's talk about your latest film. The pivot is obvious. The attempt at normalcy almost desperate. The screen behind them flashes a still from the movie. Dark lighting. Cillian's face half in shadow. The audience applauds again, grateful for something familiar to hold on to. Sunny continues. Your character is deeply isolated, emotionally withdrawn. Some critics have said it mirrors your public persona. Do you think audiences confuse you with the roles you choose? Cillian looks at the image behind him, then back to Sunny. I think audiences are very perceptive, he says. But I also think we sometimes project what we're uncomfortable with. Sunny tilts her head. Uncomfortable how? With quiet, he replies. With stillness. With not being told how to feel. A murmur ripples through the crowd again. This isn't promotion. This is philosophy. Joy interjects lightly, trying to soften the moment. Some people just don't trust a man who doesn't overshare, she jokes, prompting a bit of laughter. Cillian smiles politely, appreciative but unmoved. Sunny doesn't laugh. But isn't television, she says, turning back to him, about connection? About conversation? When you come on a show like this, viewers expect engagement. Vulnerability. Cillian nods slowly. And they deserve honesty. Sunny leans forward again. Is honesty refusing to answer directly? The question lands with a thud. The room tightens. The audience shifts in their seats. Somewhere off camera, a producer raises a hand, silently signaling caution. Cillian meets Sunny's gaze without blinking. Honesty, he says, is answering in a way that's true to yourself, not in a way that satisfies expectation. Sunny's voice stays calm, but there's an edge now. So where do you draw the line? When does self-preservation become avoidance? For the first time, Whoopi steps in, sensing the line thinning beneath them. All right, let's. Cillian gently raises a hand. Not interrupting, just pausing the moment. I don't mind the question, he says softly. The audience stills again. He turns back to Sunny. I draw the line where performance begins. I spend my life pretending to be other people. This, he gestures lightly to the table, the lights, the cameras, is the one place I refuse to pretend. There it is. Not loud, not explosive, but absolute. Sunny exhales, her fingers tapping once against her notes. She nods, but her expression says she's not done. Some would argue, she says, that choosing not to engage is itself a statement, and statements have consequences. Cillian's eyes flicker, just briefly, before settling again. So does speaking without substance, he replies. A sharp intake of breath echoes from somewhere in the audience. Joy's eyebrows shoot up. Whoopi leans back, arms crossing slowly. The tension is no longer creeping. It's settled in. Sunny straightens. Are you suggesting my questions lack substance? Cillian doesn't rush to answer. The silence stretches again, long enough to feel intentional. I'm suggesting, he says carefully, that not every conversation needs to be a confrontation. A beat. And yet, Sunny says, voice firm now, you're the one escalating. The word escalating hangs between them. Cillian smiles faintly, almost sadly. I disagree. The audience reacts, some laughter, some applause, some stunned quiet. The producers can feel control slipping through their fingers. Sunny turns slightly toward the camera, reclaiming the room. Viewers at home might feel you're dodging accountability. Cillian follows her gaze, addressing the unseen audience for the first time. I understand that, he says. And they're entitled to that feeling. But accountability to whom? For what? Being quiet? Being private? He looks back at Sunny. Those aren't crimes. The room goes very still. Sunny's expression hardens, just a touch. No, but silence can be complicit. The word complicit lands heavier than anything so far. A few audible gasps. Someone in the audience whispers. The temperature spikes. Cillian inhales slowly. When he speaks, his voice is still calm, but something underneath has sharpened. Complicity, he says, is knowing harm and choosing it anyway. Silence is not harm. It's space. And sometimes it's respect. Sunny opens her mouth to respond, but Whoopi cuts in firmly now. Okay, she says, raising her hand. We're going to take a breath here. The show cuts to a quick commercial break. The applause sign flashes, urging reaction. The audience claps, but it's scattered, uneasy. The cameras go dark. Off air, the tension doesn't disappear. It thickens. Sunny leans back, lips pressed together. Cillian remains still, staring at the table for a moment, then up at the lights. No visible anger. No triumph. Just composure. A stage manager whispers urgently to the hosts. Another producer gestures toward Sunny, mouthing next segment. The audience murmurs among themselves. Phones come out, fingers already typing. Clips are being replayed in minds, sentences already turning into headlines. The red light blinks back on. They're live again. Sunny smiles for the camera, flawless. Welcome back. The calm is forced now. Fragile. She turns to Cillian. Let me ask you this. Do you think your refusal to engage emotionally limits your impact as an artist? Cillian looks at her for a long moment. No, he says simply. I think it defines it. A wave of applause surges, stronger this time, more unified. It's not about sides anymore. It's about conviction. Sunny nods slowly, absorbing the reaction. Fair enough, but her eyes say otherwise. And yet, she adds, we live in a time where voices matter. Cillian nods. They always have. And silence, she presses, has always mattered too. The audience erupts again, louder now. Some stand. Some clap hesitantly, conflicted. The control room is in chaos. The segment ends not with resolution, but with something far more dangerous. A line drawn. And as the show moves on, as the smiles return and the questions shift, one thing is clear to everyone watching, on set and at home. This wasn't just an interview. It was a collision, and the fallout hasn't even begun. The moment the cameras cut away for the final time, the room exhales, but the pressure doesn't lift. It just moves. The applause fades into scattered noise as the audience begins to stand, some buzzing with excitement, others whispering urgently, already replaying lines in their heads. Phones are no longer hidden. Screens glow. Clips are being trimmed in real time. Somewhere in the building, a social media intern's pulse is racing. Cillian Murphy rises from his chair with the same quiet composure he arrived with. No victory lap. No lingering glance at the crowd. He adjusts his jacket, nods politely to Whoopi, to Joy. When he turns to Sunny, their eyes meet, just for a second. It's not hostile. It's not warm. It's final. Thank you for coming, Sunny says, her voice still professional, still smooth. Thank you for having me, Cillian replies. And that's it. But the room knows better. Everyone does. This moment doesn't end when the guest leaves the stage. It metastasizes. Backstage, producers are already arguing in hushed but urgent tones. One insists it was compelling television. Another worries about backlash. Someone mentions advertisers. Someone else says the clip is already trending. Cillian walks down the narrow hallway toward his dressing room, footsteps soft against the floor. A publicist falls into step beside him, whispering. That escalated, she says carefully. Cillian doesn't slow. It didn't have to. She studies his face, searching for cracks. There are none. You okay? She asks. He nods once. I'm fine. And he is. That's the unsettling part. Inside the dressing room, the door closes gently behind him. The noise fades. The world shrinks. He loosens his tie and sits, staring at his reflection in the mirror. The face looking back at him is calm, unreadable, but his eyes are alive, alert, processing. He doesn't regret a word. Across the building, Sunny Hostin remains seated at the table longer than usual. The show has moved on, the energy forced back into its usual rhythm. But something is off. She smiles. She laughs on cue. Yet her mind keeps circling the same moment. The way he didn't flinch. The way the audience responded. The way silence, of all things, had filled the room and refused to leave. A producer approaches her quietly. You okay? Sunny nods. Of course. But when she looks down at her notes, her hands are trembling just slightly. By the time Cillian steps outside into the daylight, the internet has already chosen its sides. The first clip hits social media before he reaches the car. A grainy but perfectly framed shot of him looking straight at Sunny as he says, "Loudness isn't the same as courage." The caption reads, Cillian Murphy shuts it down on The View. Within minutes, it's everywhere. Twitter explodes, no fractures. One half hails him as composed, intelligent, unshakable. That's how you handle a hostile interview, someone writes. Another says, silence as resistance. Iconic. Edits appear, set to dramatic music, zooming in on his eyes, slowing down the pauses. The other half pushes back just as hard. That was dodging, one post reads. Privilege in a suit. Another. Sunny asked valid questions and he refused accountability. The comment sections are war zones. Reaction videos pop up almost instantly. Body language experts freeze frame his posture. Media critics dissect Sunny's phrasing word by word. Hashtags trend. Hashtag Cillian Murphy. Hashtag The View. Hashtag silence is not complicity. By evening, major outlets have picked it up. Headlines are cautious but charged. Awkward tension on The View as guest pushes back. Cillian Murphy's calm sparks heated debate. Interview or ideological clash? Sunny watches it unfold from her phone, scrolling silently. Her mentions are flooded, some praising her for holding him accountable, others accusing her of ambushing a guest. She sets the phone down, exhales, then picks it up again. She can't stop reading. On another screen, Cillian's publicist Fields calls nonstop. Statements are drafted, rewritten, discarded. We could clarify, she suggests over the phone. A follow-up interview. A tweet. Something to control the narrative. Cillian listens, then shakes his head. No, he says. Let it stand. Are you sure? She presses. People are projecting everything onto this. That's not new, he replies. That night, late, Sunny sits alone at her kitchen table. The house is quiet. She replays the clip again, this time without the audience noise, without the studio lights. Just words. Pauses. Tone. She pauses it on his face mid-silence. For the first time, she wonders, not if he was wrong, but if she expected him to play a role he never agreed to. The next morning, the fallout intensifies. Morning shows debate it. Podcasts dissect it. Academics write threads about silence and performance. Actors quietly like the clip. Activists argue in long-form posts. Everyone has an opinion. And then something unexpected happens. A clip resurfaces, years old, of Cillian in a small Irish interview saying softly, I don't think my voice is the loudest or the most important. I think listening is a form of respect. The clip goes viral too. The narrative shifts just slightly. Not resolution, but complexity. Sunny arrives at the studio for the next episode with cameras already trained on her. She knows they'll ask. She knows she can't avoid it. When the moment comes, she addresses it carefully. It was a passionate conversation, she says on air. And I stand by asking difficult questions. She pauses. But I also respect his right to answer, or not answer, in his own way. The audience applauds. Not thunderous. Not cold. Somewhere in between. Across the country, Cillian watches the clip in silence. He doesn't smile. He doesn't frown. He turns off the screen and looks out the window. The storm is still moving. And everyone knows, This story isn't finished yet. The noise doesn't disappear all at once. It never does. It fades in layers. Days pass, then a week. The clips keep circulating, but the heat begins to change shape. What started as outrage becomes reflection. What felt like confrontation turns into conversation. And what looked like silence starts sounding different to people who replay it with fresh ears. Late-night hosts reference it first, half joking, half careful. "Did you see Cillian Murphy on The View?" one asks, eyebrow raised. Laughter follows, but it's uneasy. Not mocking. Curious. Thoughtful. The joke doesn't quite land, because the moment doesn't fit neatly into punchlines. Panel shows bring in media analysts. They pause the footage mid-silence, studying the way Cillian didn't interrupt, didn't lean in, didn't dominate space. Someone points out how rare that is. Someone else notes how uncomfortable it made the room. A third voice says quietly, "Maybe that's the point." Audience reaction videos begin to shift tone. Less yelling, more pausing. Comments appear beneath the clips that weren't there before. "I didn't agree with him at first, but I can't stop thinking about it. He never disrespected her. He just refused to perform." That silence said more than most monologues. Sunny Hostin feels the shift too. She notices it not in the headlines, but in the emails. Viewers writing long messages. Thoughtful ones. People who didn't attack or praise, just questioned. Some admit they felt seen by her questions. Others say they felt seen by his restraint. A few say they saw themselves in both. She rereads one message late one night. It's short. "Thank you for letting the silence exist." She doesn't know which of them it's meant for. At the next taping of The View, the audience energy is different. Still warm. Still engaged. But more alert. More aware. As if everyone understands now that not all tension is meant to be resolved before the commercial break. Sunny sits at the table, composed as ever, but something subtle has changed. When a guest pauses before answering, she doesn't rush to fill the gap. When silence arrives, she lets it sit a moment longer than usual. Across the ocean, Cillian Murphy is back on a quiet film set. No crowds. No panels. Just fog, wind, and the weight of a character that lives mostly behind the eyes. Between takes, a younger actor approaches him hesitantly. "That interview," the actor says. "I watched it. A few times." Cillian looks at him, attentive. "I didn't know you could do that," the actor continues. "Just not play along." Cillian considers this, then shrugs lightly. "You always can. It just costs you something." "What did it cost you?" the actor asks. Cillian glances back toward the set, where the crew is resetting lights. He thinks of the studio. The questions. The silence. The noise afterward. "Nothing I wasn't willing to give," he says. Weeks later, the story is no longer trending, but it hasn't vanished. It's become a reference point. A shorthand. People say, "It was very Cillian on The View," when someone refuses to be baited. Media students analyze the exchange in classrooms. Clips resurface every few months, always pulling new comments, new interpretations. And something else lingers. The audience remembers the calm. Not the sharpest line. Not the accusation. Not even the applause. They remember how uncomfortable it felt to watch someone refuse to rush, refuse to shout, refuse to simplify. They remember how the room had to meet him where he stood. That's the part that stays. On the anniversary of the interview, a montage circulates online. No music, no edits. Just raw footage. The pauses left intact. The silence untrimmed. The comments beneath it are quieter now. Still hits. Still relevant. Maybe more now than ever. And somewhere, someone watches it for the first time and realizes something unsettling. That confrontation didn't end with a winner. It ended with a question. One that doesn't ask who was right, but what we expect when we invite someone to speak, and what it means when they choose not to. That's the power of that moment. Not outrage. Not victory. Presence. And now it's your turn. What did you feel watching that exchange? Did Cillian's calm change the conversation, or avoid it? Was Sunny right to push, or did the silence already answer the question? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if you want more cinematic breakdowns, explosive interviews, and moments where celebrity masks slip under pressure, subscribe to Stage View right now. Like the video, share it with someone who loves real tension, real emotion, real moments. Because sometimes the loudest thing on stage is the silence that refuses to move.